Your first impressions of Ivan?
First impressions of Ivan Koloff, man, I tell you what, you know, I meet Jim Crockett, he takes a look at me, it was kind of funny, he goes, you know, take your shirt off. I'm like, okay, I tell me that's kind of weird, but okay, I'm thinking to myself, you know, but all right. And, you know, keep in mind, you know, I've been training a year and a half in the gym, 6-8 hours a day for pro football trials. So when I walked into the Jim Crockett's office that day, I'm 285 pounds, 8% body fat, 34-inch waist. I mean, I'm pretty stout, and that's what he saw. So he goes, wait here. He walked out, walked back in. He goes, Ivan Koloff, Don Cornotto, take a look at your new partner. And here I'd never even been in a ring, never hit a ring rope. I didn't know who those guys were because, again, I didn't grow up dreaming of being a wrestler or watching wrestling on a regular basis. And so they put me right in the interview set, and they said, hey, you're right off the boat, so you don't speak any English. Stand there, look mean. I want your shirt off. I even put your chains around his neck. And every time they do an interview, just stand there, you know, fold your arms, look mean. I'm like, yeah, I think I can do that. So we finished that up and several hours. And then Jim Crockett said, be in Raleigh, North Carolina tomorrow night, you're going to wrestle on television. So, of course, I'm like looking at Ivan and Don going, never been in a ring, how's that going to work? Oh, we'll get there early. We'll get there early. Well, we got there late. And Crockett was not happy. Ivan still talked him into letting me do it. And he gave this simple instruction, Ivan, if he trips on the ropes getting in the ring, he's out of here. He's history. He's done. And so I just focused on that. And so when I look at Ivan Koloff, think back on Ivan, our friendship, Ivan's career in wrestling, stellar career in wrestling, very grateful and thankful, because if it hadn't been for Don and Ivan those first few months, I mean, these guys, we got to the arenas every night, 2-3 hours early. They bumped all over the ring for me. Ivan would sit in my corner that night in my match. I'd sit in their corner for their World Tag Team match. So I learned the mechanics of wrestling from Don Cornotto and Ivan Koloff on the job. And then they would just talk to me about the old school psychology of wrestling on the way home. So prior to the match, the mechanics. After the match, the psychology. And I couldn't say enough good things about Ivan Koloff and the success of my career. Much of it is certainly attributed to him and Don Cornotto.
Ivan Koloff passed away a couple years ago now. I'm not sure if it had something to do with hepatitis or not, because I know it was related to liver cancer and he needed some treatments, I guess, that he couldn't afford just before he passed. I remember reading about that. What are your thoughts on his passing? And it was kind of sad. He didn't have much at the time.
Yeah, Ivan lived, I mean, he lived a full life. I mean, he had a stellar career in professional wrestling. And you know, when I talked to him only a couple weeks prior to his passing, and he had shared with me, and I knew his physical struggles. I mean, he was a wreck from head to toe. I mean, by a wreck meaning, I mean, from separated shoulders to busted ankles to, you know, blown out knees. I mean, he gave everything he had to the wrestling business. I mean, if anybody ever did, Ivan Koloff was one who lived, ate, and breathed it, loved the wrestling business, gave his heart to wrestling, really. And so I knew the last number of years he had a lot of physical struggles, just to get out of bed and get going in the morning. But man, he was a machine to the end, right to the end. He was a machine, and wouldn't complain. At least never complained around me, never complained to me. Just amazing. And I guess the highlight for me is after I left wrestling, having given my life to Jesus and reaching out to Ivan, and inviting him to a church service in 1995 and witnessing him at an altar, and it was a real life change. By that I mean it wasn't some religious thing, that experience that he encountered. He encountered real life change because by his own testimony, he went from being a drug addict and an alcoholic and addicted to tobacco and just a host of things. And on that night that I witnessed, I was there. I mean, it was like the slate, the whiteboard was wiped clean, and he got a brand new start. And then to watch him live the last 20 or so years of his life with a different perspective on life, still loving wrestling, but having a real love for the Lord and mincing no words in anywhere he went, whether it was an autograph signing in a Walmart store or wherever. He always had his Bible with him. And so right up to the end, there was just a peace about him that really gives a peace in my heart, even though it's sad of his passing. And I was fortunate, invited by his wife to speak. It was a very private memorial that they had for him. And she had invited me and asked me, and I made a point of rearranging my schedule because I wanted to be there to speak at his memorial, and just had nothing but just such fond memories for Ivan. You know, one more thing about Ivan, you know, and you know the liver, you know, his liver failure. You know, part of that, you know, and Ivan wasn't shy about, you know, telling, you know, sharing all the ways he felt like he screwed up over the years. He knows towards the end that a lot of his drinking and drugs had a lot to do, even though he cleaned his life up, you know, like I said, in 1995. Prior to 1995, he lived a pretty rough life, pretty rugged life, and he wasn't shy about sharing that and knowing how detrimental a lot of that was to his health. You know, let's face it, I mean, the body can only sustain so much abuse, right? Whether it's drugs, alcohol, tobacco, or anything else. And so that certainly led to you know, what some might say is a premature death for Ivan. He was in the early 70s.